And I personally felt when the UN mission came in the immediate aftermath of our exit from the country, right? I personally felt that may have been a more appropriate opportunity for her to step in and offer to talk to the UN mission, participate election, where the new generation could not vote for 15, 16 years. That's also not an ideal situation. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean one wrong justifies another wrong.
Joining me on Global Pulse tonight is Professor Syed Munir Khasru. He is the chairman of the Institute for Policy, Advocacy and Governance. He joins us live from Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka. Professor Khasru, thanks so much for joining me on the show. First and foremost, what do you make of this verdict? It has sent shockwaves through the entire region, really, with Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister, being sentenced to death. She, of course, says the verdict is politically motivated. What do you make of it?
Well, I don't know where to start. I mean, if you're talking about political motivation, I mean, uh, there may be some element of truth in what she's saying, and I'm not sure because I have not been very sort of engaged with the legal process that was going on. But the fact remains, unfortunately, that I mean, even during Awami League's rule, there were a lot of questions about judiciary, executive branch, legal branch under control of one person. That was her. So, unfortunately, I'm not sure how much we have come out of that legacy, the current whatever is going on in the international tribunal. And I personally felt when the UN mission came in the immediate aftermath of our exit from the country, right? I personally felt that may have been a more appropriate opportunity for her to step in and offer to talk to the UN mission as opposed to the current whatever local court on which she may not have that confidence on the fairness of justice. Vis-a-vis, same thing can be said about her opposition when she was in power. There were a lot of issues about how the judicial process is unfolding. So, to be honest, it's not that during her time people had a lot of confidence in judiciary, and if she doesn't have the same confidence, that the judicial part goes. So I personally felt it has been only 1 year, little more than 1 year, that she has recently, we have seen coming out a little bit speaking in media, particularly in Indian media. At least she has started speaking. So that's the way it is. And as far as the judicial process is concerned, uh, I'm not very qualified to make a sort of fair judgment on how fair or unfair it has been. And as I say, same thing can be said about the process that was happened. The war crime tribunal that happened during her time. So there are a lot of issues and debate about that as well. So it's mired in controversy, to put it very fairly.
Right, Professor Khusro, fact is that this entire issue is deeply contentious in terms of the political dimension. By sentencing her to death, do you not believe that Bangladesh has practically ensured that Sheikh Hasina cannot return to the country, even though Mohammed Yunus, the head of the interim government, keeps saying that Dhaka is going to seek her extradition from India? But the very fact that she's been sentenced to death, and she and those close to her say that she never got a fair trial. After all, this judgment has been given in absentia. Does this not ensure that she actually cannot return home?
I guess under the current circumstances, that would be the very logical inferences which you made, and probably many people in India are thinking similar way. But you'll see, to put things into perspective, when Khaleda Zia was the leader of the opposition, and she was put into jail for many, many years on some corruption case. So BNP had the same stance that this was a sort of politically motivated case, and if Hasida had been in power, probably she still would have been in jail until she came out after she left, right? So it's like sort of the one side of the coin, another side of the coin. As for the third, she's already 78. So, given people's the sort of revolt that happened, and Bangladesh has a long history. I'll give you an example. When the former army dictator General Ershad was thrown out in 1991, right? No one could imagine that he would come back as leader of the opposition. His political party would survive, given the animosity people had at that time in the early 90s, right? So I would say it won't be very smart to rule out any possibility. And in Bangladesh, we have seen a lot of swings and turns of how things pan out. Unless you have had those kind of situation where Sheikh Mujib was assassinated, Ziaur Rahman was assassinated, that's a different case altogether when you don't live anymore. But if you're still alive, anything can happen in Asia and in Bangladesh. So I wouldn't rule out anything. At this point, it looks very unlikely. You're very correct in saying that. But I would say, if I were, I mean, as a Bangladeshi who have seen enough, I would not rule out any possibility. But under the current situation, yes, it would be difficult.
I agree with you, Professor. Nothing can ever be ruled out in politics, especially in the subcontinent.
Right.
But fact is that Bangladesh has an election coming up in the month of February. Now, Sheikh Hasina and her son say that with her party, the Awami League, banned in that country, there cannot possibly be a free and fair election. And isn't this legitimate criticism that Muhammad Yunus needs to address? How can there be a free and fair election if one of the largest political parties in the country, which has been in power for such a long time, cannot even contest the upcoming polls?
Well, I'll address your question in twofold. The second part, longest period in power. Longest period in power, how? By having three non-participative election, which even my Indian friends in the Indian media sometimes told me they didn't feel like coming to observe election because they knew it was a foregone conclusion. I've had friends in mainstream Indian media, they used to say, what's the point of going to Dhaka to observe election? You know what the results are. So if you're having non-inclusive, non-participative election where the new generation could not vote for 15, 16 years, that's also not an ideal situation. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean one wrong justifies another wrong. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, Awami League is a popular party. They have a strong support base. It will be unfair to sort of deny this fact, 30% for 35%, whatever. There are people who are strongly, just as in India, you have some hardcore Congress people, BJP people, no matter what, right? So same thing is applicable to Awami League. But the fact is, when you say without Awami League election, the sad reality is during 15, 16 years, it's an open secret. It was non-participative. In some BNP, I think, participated in one of them. Most of them, they did not participate. It was widely alleged to be rigged. So one way or the another, just having election doesn't mean anything until it's fair and fair. And one of the things I recently wrote in Indian Express, I'm just bringing it to show a little bit more perspective. If you look at Indira Gandhi in the mid 70s, right, she was a towering figure and a very widely respected iron lady. And some of the excesses she committed, emergency and everything. Then there was an election and she lost it and she went into jail. She came out, apologized, and people respected that humility. She came back to power 1990 until she was assassinated in 94. So my argument would be a great leader has nothing to lose by being humble and accepting responsibility. And Bangladeshis, by their nature, are very emotional, sentimental people. They will uh, take you to the peak, bring you down very quickly. That's the way we are. So, so I mean, so. If someone of that stature, Indira Gandhi in mid 70s, could have said sorry, why can't she say sorry? I mean, a recent interview in Hindu, I saw lines like that some of the law enforcers committed excesses. That, in my opinion, is not good enough. And I mean, she can easily do that. And so that I haven't seen. I haven't seen that much. And what happened at that time, the popular student movement completely went out of control because of the high-handedness with which it was, tried to be suppressed. So that's the consequences. Yep.
I take your point. You think that she should probably apologize for the excesses that were committed by the police during her regime that led to the deaths of so many young people. But fact of the matter is that the circumstances under which she had to flee Bangladesh clearly suggest that there was and perhaps still is a threat to her life. And now, of course, she's been sentenced to death, which, like I said earlier, makes it practically impossible for her to return to her home country. But let me ask you a different question, Professor Khasru. Are you concerned that not only is Bangladesh unlikely to have a free and fair poll in February next year, but that there could in fact be violence in the run-up to those elections, given the fact that, Bangladeshi society really hasn't stabilized since the July uprising of last year. And two, Sheikh Hasina's son has said that if the Awami League is not allowed to contest, it will do everything in its power to actually block those elections from taking place. So, are you concerned that there could be fresh violence and unrest in Bangladesh? Unfortunately, the country has seen too much of it in recent times.
The first part, even without Awami League, I'm concerned about the current situation where you may have seen that the current two parties in the fray, BNP and Jamaat, who usually ideologically are supposed to be aligned, are not any longer seeing eye to eye. BNP wants parliamentary election, Jamaat wants referendum. Caretaker government has opted for both being in the same day. Jamaat has a meeting tomorrow where they'll decide. So, for example, if Jamaat decides that they don't want both in the same day, then we again head in a sort of untoward situation, even without Awami League. Forget about Awami League, even within BNP Jamaat, right? So that itself, even without Awami League, there's unease prevailing in Dhaka that what will happen now. If Awami League joins the third dimension, then okay, there is an election, BNP Jamaat both are contesting, right? Now the question you referred to that they will try to stop election at any cost, I'm not sure what he meant. And if Awami could have done election at any cost, what has happened in 15 and the sort of suppression that went on, I'm not sure what the current caretaker government has in mind, how they're going to handle it. And I personally have felt, in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, the caretaker government in many instances have not done a proper job. I don't think they really have the political, I would say, roadmap. I don't think has been navigated very efficiently. So, what sort of reform, other thing that people really had hoped for, is falling through the cracks. So that disappoints many people like me who are not necessarily aligned with any party but want to see the country. And to be fair to Hasina, there were some good things also economically there. We overtook India's per capita income. So there were some good things done. It would be unfair to say everything under her was bad. That's not a line to take. But I personally feel the economic, whatever success she has had, she did not need to go so high handed at every level. And that led to whatever has happened today, right? So it's a complex situation. I understand our Indian friends and colleagues like you when they ask this question. But it's very difficult to explain and give a wholesome answer because reality on the ground is very complex. That's what worries me. Even without Awami League, the current situation we are seeing with BNP Jamaat referendum, it's a sort of not a very idealistic situation that we had hoped for when she left the country, and we were hoping, some reform, some institutional changes, so that something similar doesn't happen in future. I'm not sure where we are heading.
I definitely appreciate and respect the nuanced position you have on this. There is no doubt, Professor Khasru, that this is a very complex situation that the country faces. But I'm glad you brought up the interim government led by Muhammad Yunus and its track record. You said that its work and conduct have really left a lot to be desired. Now, at least Muhammad Yunus critics say that he's not been able to deliver on most of the promises that he had made at the time when he took over as the chief advisor of this interim government. As you pointed out, a lot of the reforms that had been promised haven't really been delivered yet. And there are also accusations that under his interim government, not only has Bangladesh failed to stabilize as a society and get back on its feet after all the unrest that we saw during and after the July uprising, but that many radical Islamist groups have flourished and gained ground in Bangladesh under Muhammad Yunus. That is one of the many criticisms against him. How do you look at it?
I wouldn't squarely put it on him. I would put it a little bit on BNP and Awami League because people, by and large, if you come to Dhaka and have sit on a tea stall, have tea with ordinary people, you will find a big chunk of people disillusioned with both the parties. So if you are disillusioned with two major parties, you try to look out for options. So you don't have too many options, right? I mean, military rule is not an option. So then what happens, as we had predicted many, many times, this kind of third option, ideal or non-ideal, Jamaat or fundamentalist party, they gain leverage. And to be fair to them, if we are to blame them, we also start putting blame on Awami League and PNP because the rules they have had alternatively, right, until Hasina ruled for 15, 16 years. If you talk to any Bangladeshi, non-political, not a BNP loyalist or Awami League loyalist, they're quite disillusioned. And the Gen Z and the new generation, they don't have any ideological leaning to either of the two parties. The forces which brought down Hasina largely, even they were backed by BNP Jamaat, they were the face of the movement that led to her ouster, right? So there is a lot of reorientation going on in Bangladesh politically. So what? And the next election, hoping free, fair, and whatever it is, a little bit of reflective of how this new mix of voters who have not voted for last 15 to 16 years, will they be split between BNP and whatever is the Jamaat, or will not vote, or will they go for the third option? This is a very different kind of election that we have seen in the past. When Ershad fell down, it was very easy. Either Awami League or BNP. One of them will come to power, right? So BNP came, then Awami League came. So we had, I mean, no party came to power twice until Hasina came in 2009, and all the election next were marred with controversy, right? So to be very, very fair answer to your question, I can't help but give you a little more detail so that from outside you get a better appreciation. And when I've been in Delhi, I could fully understand the concern of our friends like you and very legit questions. And I could at times see there's a gap in terms of how much our Indian friends know. I'll give you a simple example. In the aftermath of Hasina's ouster, I'll be very honest with you. I was a little disappointed. A big portion of Indian media, this was Hindu bashing that went on. I mean, to be honest with you, in a country of 180 million people, there can be some incidents. But the chief advisor, army chief, went to two, three times in all the temples, Durga Puja last year, and assured the Hindus, please come, we'll make sure. So sometimes
But there
those.
were attacks. Professor Khasru, let's be honest, there were targeted attacks against the Hindu minorities in Bangladesh in the wake of Sheikh Hasina's ouster. I don't think you can deny that. And I'm not sure you can really blame it on a media narrative.
No, 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 no. I'm not blaming. What I'm saying, in a country of 180 million, I'm sure there were some incidents. I'm not saying it did not happen. But the scale it was projected, even BBC Verify shot down 90% as fake news. I'm not saying it did not happen. I'm sure something must have happened. By the same token, with all due respect, a lot of things happen to Muslims in India. So that's also a case. And I'm sure sometimes you also get upset. Maybe it's more reported than what it is. I'm not sure. I'm not. I don't live in India, so I can't say that. But I had a lot of Hindu friends telling me they were upset with the way. I'm sure there may have been some incident. I'm not denying, but the scale and magnitude to which it was projected, unfortunately, is not what happened. I'm sure. I'm not
Okay.
denying.
I mean, this is something that can always be debated. But coming back to Sheikh Hasina's fate, Professor Khasru, the question is, both in legal and political terms, what do you think lies ahead for Sheikh Hasina, the woman who has served as Prime Minister of Bangladesh for more terms than any other leader? Do you believe at this point in time she's almost out of options? I could be wrong, but my understanding is that she cannot even file an appeal against this verdict till she actually returns home. And like I said, a death sentence makes that virtually impossible. Do you believe she's out of options here, both legally and politically?
It's too early to say because you see everything is dependent on other factors. Because first and foremost, we have to see since Army League currently is not allowed to participate in the election, right? So we will have to see how the election unfolds without Army League, Jamaat, BNP, right? As it stands today, I mean, we are speaking on November 17th, right? So December 17th, we don't know. In December 17th, it looks like BNP Jamaat both are participating. There's a full-fledged election campaign going on. Army League is not allowed to participate, right? Then we have to see that how it goes. So it's too early to say because, as I was telling you, even without Army League, rest of the players in the game are not seeing eye to eye. As far as she is concerned, you're very correct. If I were in her shoes, I have a death sentence hanging over my head. Obviously, I will not be confident, comfortable to return to country. So I can fully understand her position. Now, from distance, how much she can do, and that is the reason, why I wrote in Indian Express. In my opinion, one good point can be if she really wants to recover, it to take responsibility of what happened, and come out and clear about it because people, whatever happened is happened. It's witness is recorded. It's her choice she has to make. Neither you or I can decide for her how she wants to navigate her future. But you're very correct, and I agree with you. Under the current circumstances, if I were in her case, in her shoes, obviously I would be very uncomfortable coming back in when it's a death sentence hanging over my head. It's very obvious.
Yes, and it'll also be interesting to see how India deals with this situation going forward, given that Mohammed Yunus does repeatedly talk about extradition. What India has said today is that we're watching the situation carefully. We've noted this verdict and will continue to engage with stakeholders. I wonder what your thoughts are on how India has dealt with this entire situation in Bangladesh. Of course, it's widely known that she has been given asylum here in India.
Now, I'll push a little further. I mean, just 1 hour ago, I was speaking to another of your colleagues from the Indian media. I'll be very frank about it. In my opinion, India is a great friend. You fought with us in 71. We shed blood and tears together. Bangladesh got liberated, right? So there are a lot of, and when I go in Delhi, a lot of good friends like you, colleagues like you. I mean, I feel very comfortable. But the point is, during this 15, 16-year rule, whenever your dignitaries came to Bangladesh, your foreign secretary, your foreign minister, and many occasions I had the privilege to be invited closed door lunch, dinner, breakfast, where they really wanted to hear us out, right? In many instances, I was the only person in the room who was not a Awami Leaguer. And I told our Indian friends, much to the annoyance of most of the people, it is not a smart strategy to put all your eggs in one basket. And
Okay.
this perception of Bangladeshis, even if it's a misperception, say for the sake of argument, that India's relationship with one person, one party will not help in the long run. So forget about BNP,
This is
forget
an
about.
interesting point that you make, but can I ask you a follow up question? There are
Let me
also
finish. Yeah, let me
deep
just finish.
concerns in New Delhi
Let me finish.
about BNP and Jamaat-e-Islami being anti India.
I'll come to that. So for 15, 16 years, India saw non-participative election. Even my Indian journalist friend, when I used to ask them, aren't you going to come to monitor the election observer? They point blankly told me, why? We know the results. This I heard from your colleagues in the Indian media industry. They knew what was the outcome. So the question is, India being someone who had enormous influence on Hasina, in my opinion, could have had positive influence on her. But every time India took the path, it's an internal matter of Bangladesh. If it is an internal matter of Bangladesh, for India to come out now and talk about inclusive election doesn't go very well with Bangladeshis. Because 16 years, there was no talk about inclusive elections. It was all about internal matter of Bangladesh. Now, coming to your question, Jamaat BNP. I personally think both parties, in my opinion, the way I see them, will be smart enough to carve out a working relationship with India. I don't think they will ignore India. I don't think they'll throw everything out of the window. That will be very foolish to do. We share a border of 4,000 kilometer plus. We will have to find ways to engage with India. Bangladesh, India, particularly us, we have to get off the extremes, pro-India, anti-India. I always say engage with India. You can change your friends, you can't change your neighbors. You have to live with India for the rest of your life, right? So I don't think I think both the parties, particularly BNP, have had some dose of reality check, I think. So maybe if they come to power, I don't know who will come to power. I'm sure they'll be more pragmatic, more forward looking, and they would reciprocate what your Emia just said, that they want
Okay.
engagement. And that's
Let's
the
let's certainly hope you're right, because India's experience with Khalida Zia and the Jamaat does not inspire much
right.
confidence. Final question, Professor Khasru, before we let you go, as a concerned Bangladeshi citizen, are you worried about where the country is headed? Like I said, the perception really is that Bangladesh continues to encounter a great deal of not just political instability but social and economic turmoil. And it's very hard to say if that's going to go away with the upcoming election in February.
That's a fair question to ask. Uh, just as you, as a friend across the border, are asking me a question, me being an insider Bangladesh, I will not deny I have my fair share of concern. I will not tell you that, oh, everything will be hunky dory after the election. No. At BNP being out of power for 15, 16 years and being put on the run by Awami League, how they manage their crowd, and they're increasingly concerned that we run into another version of Awami League under a different cloak BNP. That's a general concern, really. So I hope BNP learns from what Awami League did and doesn't repeat the same mistake. But we have to see until elections are over, assuming they win. And if Jamaat wins, say for the sake of discussion, we don't know because they've never been in power. But
Yes.
current vacuum and people disillusionment with Awami League largely and BNP a little bit, it's an open game. So it's very, very tricky. And in my opinion, a caretaker government, as much I have respect for Professor Yunus for his accomplishment, I personally believe uh, this period we could have used much better, much reform, which I'm afraid is not heading anywhere. So that's my biggest, I would say disappointment. We had a great opportunity, but in my opinion, he may have had well intent, but I'm not sure how much he was well equipped to deliver on that intent. Two very different things.
Absolutely. Well, we will all be watching this upcoming election in Bangladesh very closely, and the Sheikh Hasina verdict is, of course, going to have huge reverberations, not just for personally for her and her political party, but indeed for Bangladesh itself. Professor Syed Munir Khasru, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining me on Global Pulse.
Thank you. Bye bye.